2024. Will there be more mass layoffs this in the ever-evolving landscape of employment? The question arises, will 2024 bring a wave of mass layoffs? Today, we're diving into the pressing question. 2024? Will there be more mass layoffs this year? Join us as we explore the factors influencing employment trends, economic forecasts, and the potential impact on businesses and employees. From technological advancements to global events, we'll dissect the variables that could shape the job market in the coming months. Let's delve into this critical discussion together. How did Jack Welch's controversial layoff strategy at GE in the 1980s set the tone for modern corporate downsizing? Jack Welch's tenure as CEO of General Electric from 1981 to 2001 embodied a form of ruthless corporate capitalism that treats employees as expendable rather than valued assets. His harsh policies prioritizing short-term profits over people catalyzed a cultural shift towards viewing routine layoffs as an acceptable business practice. In the early 1980s, Welch instituted aggressive reforms centered on cutting costs, chiefly by laying off the bottom 10% of GE's employees each year in what he euphemistically called rank and yank. Between 1981 to 1986 alone, GE eliminated over 250,000 jobs, nearly 1/4 of its workforce. Welch earned the brutal nickname Neutron Jack for eliminating people while leaving buildings intact, like the aftermath of a neutron bomb. His draconian tactics shocked corporate America at the time, both in their cold-heartedness and sheer scale. However, in subsequent decades, Welch's playbook has become standard operating procedure across industries. Shareholder capitalism, the philosophy that a corporation's sole purpose is maximizing value for its shareholders, has become pervasive. Within this paradigm, employees transform from vital organizational assets into human resources, a flexible pool of labor that can be downsized whenever convenient to protect profits. Even in good economic times, companies perpetuate layoffs out of habit cultivated in periods of broader downturns. The recent pandemic-related layoffs across the technology sector proved this legacy remains strong. In 2023 alone, newly cautious tech firms like Amazon, Salesforce, Meta, and others eliminated over 250,000 jobs, eerily echoing the scale of Neutron Jack's cuts 4 decades prior. And economically unstable times often serve to justify or amplify such impulses. For instance, COVID-19 triggered the worst job losses since the Great Depression. In today's corporate culture that prioritizes share prices and quarterly earnings, employees face immense job insecurity. Jack Welch's brutal philosophy endures as the rule, not the exception. Workers at all levels face layoff risk even when performing well, purely in the name of cutting costs and boosting profit margins, until the prevailing business ethos shifts to value employees as assets rather than expenditures. The specter of Neutron Jack will continue haunting cubicles across America. Why did companies like Google and other tech giants go on massive hiring sprees during the pandemic? And how did this set the stage for current waves of layoffs? The pandemic saw tech companies balloon in size, hiring aggressively as lockdowns drove increased reliance on their services. With people stuck at home, demand for e-commerce, deliveries, streaming, and virtual connections spiked. Big tech treated this as permanent, expanding despite initial uncertainty. Google gave all employees raises and bonuses in 2010, epitomizing the optimistic outlook. But post-pandemic, these hiring levels proved unsustainable. The world reopened, but additional workers were now redundant. With muted growth and fears of recession, cost-cutting became urgent. Companies looked to return to pre-pandemic levels, spurring massive layoffs. 2023 alone saw over 240,000 tech job losses. The pandemic hiring frenzy set expectations companies could not fulfill, necessitating painful right-sizing. How do factors like economic volatility, rising and shifting business priorities also factor into the recent wave of layoffs? While excessive pandemic hiring set the foundation, other factors converged to spur layoffs. AI and automation are replacing some roles, especially in customer service and basic analysis. Economic instability, recession fears, and rising inflation drive precautionary cost reduction. And shifting business priorities mean companies cancel experimental projects and products in favor of a narrowed focus. For example, Google plans to simplify execution by removing layers between leadership and core products. Amazon Studios scrapped some film TV projects. Across industries, companies are tightening budgets and headcounts. While still profitable, businesses are bracing for potential disruptions by cutting costs and realigning on most profitable essentials. Why can't companies rely on simply not doing more hiring to reduce headcount gradually over time, rather than sudden mass layoffs? Companies could cut staff more gradually by slowing hiring rather than sudden layoffs. But this takes too long when they want immediate cost savings and realignment. Not replacing departing employees happens, but must be balanced against business needs. Layoffs immediately reduce costs, which pleases investors, and concentrating cuts rather than dragging them out is seen as ripping off the Band-Aid. Firings also signal an urgent shift to shareholders. Layoffs have become the corporate world's tool of choice for rapid transformation, despite the human toll. For those laid off, it provides little comfort that they were part of an agile pivot rather than performance issues. The brutality reflects the cold calculation that workers are expenses to be shed when convenient. How have generous employee perks and cultures at many tech companies quickly unraveled in recent layoff waves? Lavish employee perks were central to tech company cultures just a few years back. Google offered on-site massages, gym facilities, free gourmet food, and more. The message was keeping employees happy and comfortable was a top priority, but cost-cutting layoffs have entirely upended this facade. For example, Google's first round of job cuts disproportionately hit massage therapists and recruiters, two roles central to their vaunted culture. The rapid abandonment of perks and severed social contracts shows where true priorities lie: profits over people. Culture was merely a human resources strategy, not an ethos, as evidenced by the callous abandonment of loyalty in economic flux. Why can mass layoffs have devastating personal impact on employees beyond just the loss of income? Losing a job inflicts far greater tolls than just income loss. 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, lacking savings to buffer unemployment. New jobs often pay less, with fewer options available. Being unemployed also massively elevates risk of mental and physical illness. Studies show laid-off workers have an 83% higher risk of developing ailments in the 15 to 18 months post-layoff. The odds of suicide increase nearly 300%. Beyond just stress, job loss severs social connections and a sense of purpose. The trauma of having the rug pulled out from under career and lifestyle cannot be overstated. Layoff statistics fail to capture the severity of human wreckage left behind. Why are further layoffs likely in 2023, even though most tech companies remain quite profitable? Despite still robust profits, experts warn major companies likely face more layoffs in 2023. Alphabet's Q4 2022 earnings reached $19 billion, up from $14 billion a year prior. But their growth has slowed, so they are restructuring to cut costs and refocus on core profit drivers. Amazon's operating income also grew year over year, but at a slower pace. With economic uncertainty ahead, these cash-rich companies will continue cutting workers to maximize profitability, even if minor dips don't yet threaten their health. Employees are expendable liabilities, not valued assets to be retained. In this line of executive thinking, only strict regulations could deter layoffs at hugely profitable companies. Otherwise, workers simply face continued churn in the name of shareholder value. What kind of workplace culture, changes and reforms could help make layoffs an absolute last resort rather than routine practice? To change the current layoff culture, employees should have seats on corporate boards to represent their interests against investor short-termism. Performance metrics should track employee retention, satisfaction, and wellness rather than solely stock prices. Executives should face pay cuts before resorting to layoffs, share sacrifices across the company. Layoff decisions should require worker input and have appropriate oversight regulations. Companies should invest in retraining and transfers for those displaced to retain talent within the organization. Perks and culture should be embedded as a genuine priority, not a disposable recruiting tool. Leaders should communicate with compassion, honesty, and humanity when layoffs occur. And conversely, severance should be generous, based on tenure. with extended health coverage. With these reforms, companies would treat workers as true partners sharing risk and reward. The well-being of all stakeholders would define success, not just investors. What are the risks if current layoff trends continue unabated? If layoffs remain a routine reflex rather than last resort, there are major risks. Worker distrust, disengagement, and mental health crises would worsen from constant job insecurity, widening inequality as most profits flow to investors while workers carry the brunt of volatility. Consumer spending could dip due to declining disposable incomes from layoffs rippling across the economy. Resentment could build towards antisocial corporate practices lacking empathy for workers. Vicious cycle as problems from layoffs like poor morale spur additional workforce reductions. Reputational damage makes hiring future talent harder after breaching social contract. Less accountability on companies to invest in worker training and development long term. Layoffs should only be a last resort, not a first option. Otherwise, they corrode communities' productivity, trust, and the entire social fabric underpinning corporate success. The human impacts matter. As we conclude our exploration into the question of whether there will be more mass layoffs in 2024, it's crucial to stay informed and prepared for any economic shifts that may lie ahead. If you found this discussion insightful and want to stay updated on employment trends and economic developments, don't forget to hit that like button below and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to provide valuable content to help you navigate the complexities of the job market. Feel free to share your thoughts and insights in the comments section. And until next time, stay informed